Hello everyone, and welcome to my portion of the student teaching video. My portion includes the industry side of World War I, including wartime industries, wage changes, and growth in labor. It also includes some numbers and some facts that you can see throughout the PowerPoint, and also see on the works cited at the end of the video if you guys want to check them out. But before we get started, you may hear my dog bark every now and then. I'm sure there is a squirrel running across the screen outside, so he's trying to annoy me and annoy my dog at the same time. So to get started, American industry in World War I, it increased, it boomed, and it was just this unprecedented event that you would never see beforehand, not at this size and scale. Exports from the U.S. to Europe tripled in size, from $1.4 billion to about $4.1 billion. Now, this is mainly caused from ammunition, guns, medical supplies that were needed by the Europeans and later by our American troops that were on the ground, as well as aircraft and some tanks. Not much of both, but there was some of that as well included. Federal spending jumped from $477 million in 1916 to $8.4 billion in 1918. Now that's a huge increase, and you can see how much the government was involved in supporting the effort to kind of win this war and to increase our overall performance as well at home. The WIB, or the War Industries Board, was created and established by Woodrow Wilson. It was established in July 28th, 1917. It was basically organized to kind of streamline and to make our industry, wartime industry, more efficient, so we can send out more at once. Instead of sending out all these different types, we wanted just one type and send it out and get it to the war front as soon as possible. It would also coordinate the purchase of military supplies, so basically it allowed for weapons and all these different ammunitions and clothing and all this just to be coordinated and make it more efficient to get it out there faster for our troops. It was also put under the control of Bernard Bush, who was a Wall Street advisor who supported Woodrow Wilson during his election, and this helped this board kind of form and reorganize during 1918. American jobs and wages. This was a huge positive aspect of the World War I. It was mainly the cause of World War I. It was really caused by World War I, this boost in American jobs and wages. So you can see that during the war there was a large amount of people finding work, including women, including African Americans, Spanish. Anybody who wanted work, they could find it. So for those working in the industrial side, wages increased from 6 to 7%. That's not from 6 to 7, but from 6 to 7%. I mean, it increased dramatically, and this was great for those who hadn't had a job before to gain that extra funds to support their later life. Also increased the amount of available jobs, which led to a sizable increase in the American labor force. So this was like armies of people were coming to fight a war, but instead of fighting it in the trenches, they were fighting at home in factories and supporting the war from home and giving everything they got, sweating days and nights to support their brothers and sisters that were fighting in World War I. 40 million in 1916 to 44 million in 1918. So you can see that's a pretty sizable increase and something you don't really normally see. So this is going to conclude my portion of the student. Alright guys, the next video you guys are going to see is Ethan's portion. He's going to be talking about the people, their rights, and their political views. So I hope you guys enjoy.
As many labor workers headed off to war, the amount of job opportunities spiked, and many companies began offering higher wages for shorter hours to get the much-needed labor workers. Now that the workers were more needed by the industry, they had better chances of demanding what they want, and union memberships nearly doubled from 2.7 million to over 5 million. When Wilson tried to defeat criticism of the war by inspiring patriotism, he also inspired a frenzy of 100% American campaigns. These campaigns called for the removal of everything German, including the names of some foods. These campaigns reached their most extreme in the form of the lynching of Robert Prager. With the majority of America supporting the war, the prohibitionists saw their opportunity. They began to argue that resources for liquor should instead go into food for the armies, shown by their famous question, "Shall the many eat or the few drink?" By 1917, their cries had inspired 19 states to go dry, and by December, Congress passed the 18th Amendment. Women began to see better opportunities during the war, with over 25,000 supporting the troops in France, many of which were in the medical field. Women also saw benefits at home, with the labor shortages giving women not only more jobs, but access to new jobs that were mainly men-specific before. The women did not want to stop there, though. They took this opportunity to try and increase their standing in politics, leading marches and strikes until finally Congress passed the 19th Amendment in 1912. Okay, so I filmed this next part for Natalie, and it's about President Wilson's reactions and policies resulting from the war. Woodrow Wilson, the winner of the 1912 elections, had trained himself mainly on domestic policies, even admitting to a friend his fears of foreign troubles. Unlike previous presidents, Wilson believed that pacifist ideas like self-determination and free trade were a better method. However, he was still quite willing to use force when he deemed necessary, such as in Mexico. After the nation officially entered the war, many Americans backed the decision. However, there were a few who advocated peace and criticized the war. These few, including Jane Addams, were labeled cowards and traitors. To prevent further criticism, Wilson took a couple actions. First, he created the Committee on Public Information, which used tactics like 4-minute men to gain support for the war. Second, he enabled 3 acts: the Espionage Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, and Sedition Act. These 3 acts allowed punishment of anyone disloyal, judgmental, or otherwise unsupportive of the war, such as Eugene Debs. As the war raged on, and Russia decided to withdraw, the army needed more soldiers. In 1917, Wilson signed the Selective Service Act, which authorized the drafting of all young men. Military numbers increased from 80,000 to over 4.8 million soldiers.